What's up, Internet? My name's Nerdy, and this is Class Action Lawsuit, a TTRPG podcast in 3 parts. This week, I will be interviewing another fantastic guest who's going to introduce themselves, as always, after they give me a charisma check. You got a D20 there?
Yes, I do. It's comically large as well. Just go big or go home. All right. Oh shit, it's 3.
Sorry, I did not get any of that. What?
I said, oh shit, it's 3.
Okay, I need you to introduce yourself at a 3 for me.
What's up? My name is Ice Cream.
It's recording and I have sound, so we're good.
Okay, well, you want to talk about the lowest charisma introduction of all time? You can literally edit it when I roll it. It's like, dude, technical difficulties. I shut down the show with my introduction. That's how bad I was at it.
You would think that would only happen on a 1, but apparently on a 3, Dice Cream Sandwich, my guest, broke the stream. So I'll do the introduction for you. Dice Cream Sandwich, also known as Kevin, is an incredible TTRPG content creator personality person on the internet, and you can go watch his funny sketches, his goof-em-ups, all over the social medias.
Goof-em-ups, we're calling them. I like it.
Yeah, why not call him it's a little goof-em-up, you know?
Little goof-em-up, little silly picture brain video thing, you know? Little dice.
Yes, it is absolutely that. I would love it.
Still charisma 3. Yeah, that's me. This is probably what I'd be like if someone invited me to like a Playboy mansion. This is how I would act.
Ooh, I don't know that would be a good idea. I feel like you might want to button up a little bit for Playboy Mansion. I feel like the people there have an expectation of class.
Maybe. I don't know. I get awkward sometimes with people when I'm nervous and just be like, hey, so what do you do? And be like, I roll dice. Hi. Why is my volume of my voice loud?
One of my favorite stories, it's such a wildly inappropriate story to start our podcast with, but the Hollywood is known for its loose morals at times, I think, and at an orgy way back in the day, this is like the late 60s, early 70s, the cast of the Batman live action TV show were there. And apparently, Adam West and the actor who played the Joker on the show were cracking each other up at this orgy, playing their characters, chasing each other around, and they got kicked out because it was making other people uncomfortable that they were pretending to be Batman and the Joker. And
they were involved in the orgy?
Yes.
You'll never catch me, Batman!
And then they were asked to leave. Exactly.
Joker, you fiend!
It's one of my favorite, like, I hope to God it's a true story. Because I wish I could have been there. It's the funniest possible thing to me.
I'm surprised it's not like a Robot Chicken sketch already.
I mean, honestly, it might be. I have not seen every episode of Robot Chicken. I will not lie.
Maybe he's trying to do one of those, like, getting one of those chattering teeth to get involved in the picture, and he's like, you fiend! You're not allowed to do that!
So, Kevin, do you prefer to go by Kevin, or do you, like, want people to call you Dice Cream?
Kevin's fine.
Yeah.
I just, when you kind of live on the internet as much as I do, the content creation for like almost 5 years now, people just know me by that name. They don't know me by my real name. So I just make it easier on people to be like, yeah, just call me that. But you can say my real name too.
I have a bad habit of forgetting people's real names and only remembering their handles.
I mean, yeah, that too. It's a little bit more familiar as well. So I honestly don't have a preference. You can say whatever you like.
So the first part of this podcast is class, where we talk about who you are, how you got here. And so I like to start off by asking, what would your D&D class be, do you think, if you were thrust into a magical world and bestowed with great gifts from somebody or something?
I mean, I feel like the cliche answer is bard, but like that for a lot of us. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a performer, pretty silly at times. Like I do have a serious side too, though, and I can be like an adult and pretty good planner. And so I think I also sometimes lean on like a bard or artificer because I feel like I create a lot as well,
Mm-hmm.
and some things are created very impulsively,
Mm.
and some things are created with like long-term plans in mind. But I don't think I'm like righteous enough or stubborn enough to be a paladin. I'm not angry enough to be a barbarian. I do love the outdoors. I grew up on the Gulf Islands and the coast of British Columbia
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of hippie communities. So like that side appeals to me, but I wouldn't say that's like my identity. So I'd say like yeah, probably in between like bard and artificer.
I feel like because so many of the people that I have on the show are entertainers, I just need to stop asking this question because it's always going to be Bard. You know,
Is that
like,
what they say most of the
well,
time?
well, and it's tough, like, because I'm always like, oh yeah, I'm a Bard, but it's like I have a degree in musical theater, right? Like I've been like a song and dance man since I was 6, and so it's that weird thing of like, yeah, nothing unless I was like a warlock because some devil offered me magical powers for my soul, which is a deal I would definitely take. Um, I just don't think I don't think there's anything else that really would fit me.
I'll skew. You know what? I'll just say it. Artificer.
Yeah, can I
I'm
be
just gonna
honest with you?
say it.
I've played a lot of D&D. I have never once played at a table where someone played an artificer.
Oh my God. Well, let me tell you the joys of playing an artificer because I love that class. I had one of our first sort of streamed campaigns that I DM'd. I had a major NPC who was an artificer, and whether they're an NPC and I've played artificer as well at tables, they are one of my favorite classes. They have so much versatility. They have so much range in what they can contribute to a campaign,
Hmm.
whether it's story, narrative, combat, because they are the fantasy MacGyver. And
Hmm.
whatever the DM wants to let you kind of be involved in, because a lot, and it is pretty broken sometimes with builds and like what you can make and how
Yeah.
you can make it. Um, but for me, who's not like the biggest shopping episode DM, like when I have the time to do lots and lots and lots of prep, I'll do the shopping episode thing. But for the most part, I'm just like I'm more of a main storyline quest kind of guy. Like let's keep things moving along. If people want
Hmm.
that experience, obviously happy to give it to them. But I find having a really handy artificer as an NPC or a player just be like, you make it. Let's go on a side quest to get the materials, and then we'll
Hmm.
make it together. Like that to me is much more fun and collaborative than just role playing a bunch of random shopkeepers for like 2 hours, which again, nothing wrong with that. I have done it and it is very fun. But I find depending on the party, like I'll also, I guess, doing a lot of stream campaigns, you just want to keep things kind of
Yeah.
momentum moving. But yeah, artificers are one of the, I'd say, like one of the classes that everyone always champions, but not a lot of people play them.
Yeah. 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 I think it's tough because I think partially it's one of the things that I found in what limited exposure I have to artificers is that their stuff is a lot of time for everybody to be there present for, but like I mean literally at the table it's a lot of like, and now we kind of have to talk about this one person's thing for a while they do all this stuff that's very solo and very independent and doesn't necessarily lean into role play with other people easily. You can do it, and I think that really good artificers at the table do kind of involve their party in what's going on with them. But I think the risk, particularly if you're doing a lot of actual play and there's an audience with an artificer, is that it's sort of like watching how the sausage gets made a little bit, and keeping that interesting for an audience I think is difficult, and I think it's maybe why you don't see it as often, as you do things that are a little bit more simple to, like you say, like keep the plot moving, keep going into like what is the next major beat for this audience to get excited about on the Twitch stream so that people stay engaged long term on what is a very long form piece of content.
Yeah, I mean, they're like Matt Mercer did a great job in Vox Machina with Percy on making like the building and the tinkering basically like a series of checks.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, bringing mechanics into that sequence is always just fun, not for the player, but also for the audience, because they're like, how well will he build this thing? How well will he repair this thing? And sometimes we're in a pinch or like combat's going on, or if like we've got the components to make this very valuable thing, and you're seeing someone roll like, oh crap, he failed 3 times. Shit, that maybe
Yeah,
it
yeah.
won't work out. Like those kinds of things bring stakes to that idea rather than Artificers. I've also had a DM be like, hey man, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be in this shop. I'm gonna make a motorcycle robot. And then I'm gonna put a robot on the motorcycle so it'll be self-driving and have arms and a head. And also I'm gonna put guns on the end. Like 25 minutes later, and you're like, anything else? Like I would probably implore a side convo of like, you got shit you want to build? Cool. Let me know after the session
Mm-hmm.
or,
Yeah.
on our break. Like, do that in text or something. We don't have to like bog down everything to go through it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with that completely. Do you remember your first time playing a TTRPG?
Yeah. It was D&D and it was like, I want to say maybe 2016, something like that. It
Oh,
was
so
when I was
probably
still
5e
Bart.
then.
Oh yeah, it was. I was bartending at the time before I started getting into content full time.
Was this
Um,
where were you living at the time?
Still here in Vancouver, BC.
Mm-hmm.
Canadians. And I was working on Davie Street at a place called the Capitol, which is sadly no longer there.
Oh, great bar.
Um, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
awesome. I was there for like 3 years, and it was a great place. It was a great 9 to 5. Some of the most fun years of my life before getting into content creation. But yeah, I worked the Sunday brunch shift, and a group of friends would come in every morning. Two of them I knew, and the rest of the friends I didn't know. And they always came in for the morning brunch because it was cheap. It was like a 4 hour. It was like back then $4 brunch, which I can't get anymore. And they would always come in, and because they'd go to my friend Jordy's house to play D&D. He was their DM.
Mm-hmm.
Every morning they'd come in, get the same thing, and then they would talk amongst themselves about like what happened last week and what they're going to prep this week. I'm like, hey, you guys talking about Dungeons and Dragons? And they're like, yeah. And eventually they let me join the campaign. And I played, at first it was a bard monk. And then I think it moved over to just monk. But it was a bard monk, and it was a halfling, and his name was Fender Strat, which I think is like the best bard name I've ever come up with ever.
For a man who ended up not
And
being a bard.
yeah. We had bard elements, but I think it was like I took a couple levels in bard and then
Mm-hmm.
monk, and then like the bard levels were still there, but we were just like, yeah, just go full monk because I think
Mm.
this is gonna just like be better for you. Um, and it was great. It was Horde the Dragon Queen, and I had a voice that I picked because I didn't know what to do, and I was like, "What kind of voice can I do?" And the only thing I came up with in the moment was Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it wasn't a particularly good Obi-Wan Kenobi either. It was just me talking like this the whole time. Hello there. What's happening? Okay. And I just played to my strengths. I was a monk raised in a monastery, exploring the world for the first time. So I had a very whimsical, like, I didn't know anything in the game and needed to my character. So I was like, what the hell is this? What the hell is that? Holy shit, it has 9 eyes. Jesus Christ. And that was just my character for a year. Um, and it was great. And it was every Sunday, and it was like an 8 hour game,
Mm-hmm.
and we loved it. And sometimes it'd be on Saturdays, and we'd go out afterwards, like hit up the bar that I worked at or other places and just talk about the session that we had. And it was great. And then I left for a while and came back, and it went into Tiamat, and then we actually got to finish it, and I got to do the whole like
Oh
last section of
wow.
Tiamat, which is so much fun. And
Mm-hmm.
Jordy organized, one of our players wound up moving to Australia for a year. So near the end of the campaign, he had us all ride into the last battle on like the backs of dragons. And during our game, he's like, and then you hear a voice behind you, and he had the dude Skype in, and was like, I'm coming. And he like joined us on the dragon ride, and it was so fucking epic.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then we didn't play for a long time after that. I joined a campaign maybe like a year or two after that for like, I don't know, 15 sessions or something. And at the time, Critical Role was hitting on all cylinders, and I was really into that. And I asked that group, like, hey, would you want to stream maybe just for fun? Just why not? I've always been interested in trying to figure out how Twitch streamed worked. And it was just kind of really taking off. And they were like, no, we're not into that. We don't want to go down that road. And I was like, all right. It's like, fine. And that group eventually dissolved. And then I wound up catching up with Jordy again. And I was like, hey, man, do you want to play another campaign and like stream it just to try it for fun? We could do it in my living room. I was like, yeah, sure. And then we did a Curse of Strahd campaign. We streamed it on Twitch, and that's what kind of got us started in that space. And we did that for like a year and a half, and it's all on our YouTube. You can watch us for the very first stream we ever did. That started off with like using our iPhones as webcams.
Oh wow! Yeah.
We did it on. Oh yeah, really? Like we knew nothing at all, and like eventually the stream like got upgraded with like webcams and a proper laptop, and yeah, and then it was just kind of thing rolled on from there.
That's so much fun. I love that you turn towards content creation with that like first group that you started with. It's such an interesting like ride to the transition from person who plays D&D to D&D content creator. I find so fascinating because in some ways they're very different skills, right? I think that content creation, particularly unless you're doing actual play, but the kind of content creation you do with like the TikToks and that kind of short form content is so different from sort of long form. We're going to sit at a table for 8 hours, like you said. And how do you distill that experience down to a 30-second video? And so when you started to kind of get into short form, what was the impetus to start doing more short form content? And what was your like mindset around those early videos in terms of what kind of experience you're trying to create for your audience?
Well, so even before I started making D&D content, I'd been making content for 5 years before that. Because I was getting into, because I was an actor as well for a long time into film. I was acting since I was 16. My mom also is an artist, worked for EA Sports for like 30 years. We grew up in the video game industry, and she was also a huge proponent of pop culture. Like it's weird. My mom's a nerd, but not like a nerd like me, but she loves like, you know, late 80s, early 90s, like Ghostbusters, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, you know, watching Ninja Turtles cartoons and things like that, Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse. Like she was into all that stuff. But her coworkers were really into all that stuff. So they would always pass on things to her like, oh, you should watch this, or you should show your kids this. So she was a big arbiter of like that fandom getting introduced to me at an early age. And then getting into acting and filmmaking, like very inundated with storytelling at a young age as well. Not only from like those movies, but then through video games and her artwork and then acting myself. So by the time I'm working at the bar, I'm like 25, 26. And weirdly enough, this is when Instagram is like getting articles like, could Instagram and social media be a serious thing in this world? And especially for restaurants, like Facebook, Instagram were like the thing. And so I started taking over my bar's social media at the time. Not even a particular reason. I just knew how to run it. I knew the language of it. I knew kind of what pictures and videos were doing well for the restaurants. So just kind of emulated them. And then eventually those went into like kind of like TikTok skits before TikTok was a thing. Like I was filming skits, like, for example, they were like, hey, we want to do a promo for brunch for the bar. I was like, okay, I can make a video. And then I filmed me and my buddy, who I also bartended with. Like the video started off with us like getting up from like sleeping, looking at our phones and on Instagram, and it had like the brunch post. We went, brunch, and we ran out of our apartments to the outside, like sidewalk, and looked at each other and looked like forward, and then like went to the slow-mo to start a race. I played the Superman theme song, and we slow-mo raced like through the city, through various locations and obstacles to like rush into the bar. And then no one was there, and we're like, what, where's brunch? And then a patron of the bar was like, you idiots, it ended like 2 hours ago, you took too long. And we went, no. And that was the promo. And like So lots of videos like that I was already doing and getting kind of used to the idea of like creating content around a subject or an event or a product even for a while. And then eventually that experience led me to being in the company that owned the bar. They called the Warehouse Group. I was the Vancouver social media director basically for like all 7 bars in the city for a whole year. So I managed like 8 social medias, making those kind of videos per location. And so got a lot of like on the job training. And then when I got the position officially, like it was my first like professional digital marketing position, I learned a lot on the fly. I was like, I knew how to make videos, but I didn't know what marketing was. So I watched like Gary Vee videos like 4 hours a day, very much for like months. And that was like my university. But it's practical knowledge that works. And it really teaches you a lot of like life lessons in that. So by the time we get to TikTok becoming a thing in like late 2018, I was hearing through the marketing grapevine of content because I was just in a lot of funnels through like following YouTube channels and certain personalities. That when TikTok was starting to make an impact early on, people were like, and we've also at this point, 2018, we had started the Strahd campaign. I started our Instagram. It was getting a little bit of traction. Like we were doing a lot of like meme posts and giveaways, and I was getting a few follows there. And then hearing through marketing grapevines being like, you need to get on TikTok now. And that's always the what the word would be, kind of trope with new social media platforms is like the earlier you get on, the more you land grab when a platform's just starting. If it takes off, the amount of engagement you will get is like 20x than if you joined it 2 years later, right?
One of the things we like, Clarissa and I joke about so much is there was a point where it was like right away at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was like, you know what? We wanted to do this YouTube thing, but I was like, we should like really buckle down on TikTok. And it was like TikTok was like starting to grow, and Clarissa was like, no, come on, that's not going anywhere.
Don't throw Clarisse under the bus.
Oh no, she knows. It's not throwing her under the bus.
I'm just kidding.
She knows. So like 6 months later, we both were like, we fucked up. We should have. And it's just one of those. It's one of those things that if I want to like needle her about something, I'll be like, yeah, it's like that time we didn't get on TikTok when we were going to.
Well, you guys made a huge impact on your YouTube channel, and like making a YouTube channel is hard. It's very hard. I mean, like I see people doing TikTok now, and you can still blow up on TikTok. Like it's still, if you offer something unique, a unique take, or your videos are just really well made, executed, whatever. I've seen people blow up 200K in like 6 months. Like you can still do it. There's some people I follow though who are hilarious in the D&D space and make videos that get over 100K views average, and they have like 50,000 followers.
People don't follow doing it for like anymore. People don't hit the follow.
But here's the thing. This one guy I followed grew 200K in 6 months. So what is it? Because people do.
It's fake.
There's something.
It's not real people. I hate to burst the bubble on Instagram and TikTok, but a lot of those followers now, not real. It's and like we have a friend, they're with like a management company that handles their stuff. And they blew up when they got this management company. They were so happy about it. They're like, yeah, my management company's crushing it. They found out that without telling them, the management company had been buying their followers. And so now every time they post, they like drop 1,000 followers. And it's really like, it's crazy what is kind of going on with them. But I think just that's the social media, like TikTok knows, like the number of people who are clicking follow on TikTok right now is less than 4 years ago. And the transition from the For You page to someone's profile doesn't happen with the same kind of consistency as it used to, just sort of across the platform.
Yeah, I'll say that trends that I've noticed, and like to that point of this individual that I saw grow, I think their handle is Wizard in a T-shirt, I want to say.
I'm not familiar.
This young dude who makes these amazing videos that kind of span like D&D, Magic the Gathering, Warhammer. Their content's great, and I think it's more of a situation of original content versus the usual meme comedy content in a way. Because I feel that, especially when content is based on opinion or saying something rather than comedy, because I find that accounts, and like me, my biggest follower bumps are when I make content that's me talking and I offer value of some kind, whether it's showing people a cool product that they've never seen before, TTRPG advice, or an opinion on something. That seems to really boost things up. Doing the comedy thing, if you hit gold, sure. If you're getting 1 million views, statistically, a big portion of that will follow you. But Wizard in a T-shirt, all of his videos are like, a lot of the his videos are either, skits based on like a Magic player who's a troll being like, you're not a fan of the game because you don't buy these packs. And he's like, what the hell, man? Like, you don't need to do that to love the game. You can just play it and be okay. And like, I'm paraphrasing, but like that kind of opinion that's not only like commenting on the community, but saying something about it, I feel makes that person more followed, because people want to follow that person's opinion and hear their takes on things, rather than a limp sync video or a video that's just for the laughs. I feel people get the laugh and they're like, haha, and swipe up. And especially when it keeps coming up in the FYP, it's like, and this is one thing I've, like, it's been kind of because it sometimes takes me a long time to follow someone as well, because I constantly see them in my FYP. It's like I'm following them already.
Well, and I think that a lot of what TikTok found was their FYP was so strong that people didn't feel the need to click follow anymore, because people were like, oh, I'm getting the videos that I want to watch. And when I click follow on somebody, that person disappears. And because the algorithm like wants you to be in your FYP for a while and then go to your following tab to like go see those other people, because they see the like click over to another tab in TikTok as retention, right? Retention of your time. And so there are people who I follow who never come up in my FYP. I have to go like be like, oh, I haven't seen Don Marshall in a while. I'm gonna go into that tab and I'm gonna go find his videos. And there's like 15 waiting for me there. But because I haven't like clicked follow, it's just a weird that the app has sort of segmented its viewership into two very different spaces now. And I think that there's a lot of people who just, I know people who don't follow anyone anymore because they're just like, oh, the app will just show me what I want to see when I scroll, and then I'm going to put it down and go to bed at the end of the day.
Yeah, so it is weird, but I think in this day and age, just talking about D&D content in general, from a creator standpoint, I think that if I had to pick between these two options, have 1 million followers or your average view count is 2,000, or have 50,000 followers but your average view count is 500,000 to 1 million, I'd pick the other one. I'd pick the 50,000 followed one, because
1,000%.
Most brands and companies will just throw exorbitant amount of monies at creators who have a certain follower number, because that's just the status quo of the people giving money on big brands. They're always leagues behind what the actual culture is. But because I've had that background in marketing, I know how to pitch myself to a company and be like, here are my average views. Here are my average reach. Here's the value I bring when I make content for people. And I feel like it might be a bit of a sell, but if you can show them the math, they will come in droves. And like when they see it does well, they'll keep coming back to you. So I find that the following aspect of socials, like, it's important to a certain extent, because it helps with people buying into you and like, oh, he's got, like, when I reached 100K followers on Instagram this year, that sent me into another category as far as like Instagram goes, and like my sort of sponsorship inquiries like boosted up quite a bit. But I think you can get that same attention with high view count. If you're someone whose content is regularly enjoyed, if anyone out there is like having those moments like, oh, I'm just not getting any new followers, oh, it's so frustrating, but your content is highly viewed, you've already won, dude. Like, don't stress about it too much. Sometimes you need to literally get, and especially nowadays, it feels like you have to hit million viewed videos to see real growth. And I'm just lucky enough that I've hit 1 million viewed videos quite a few times to help me kind of boost that up. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, we don't really play that game like at all because we went the YouTube route. And so it is so interesting being in the boat of I love talking with people who are in kind of the shorts game, because our thing is like we're like just under 70,000 subscribers now on the YouTube channel, but we have 4 channels over 10,000 subscribers that just make money on their own. And so we maybe do a few brand deals a year, but for us, like between the YouTube and the Patreon, we just have we've built up a completely different business model, despite also being content creators. But the way the money works in it is just wildly different. Because we don't have to sell ourselves as much to like the brands based on our audience. We just kind of go to our audience and be like, do you want this? If you want it, pay for it. If you don't want it, you'll get it in a week, right? And that's sort of been the model for us. So at what point you're working at this marketing company, you're getting all this experience that obviously helps you become Dice Cream Sandwich. At what point do you find the name Dice Cream Sandwich and kind of start your like independent operation?
Well, my ex actually came up with the name, and at the time it was like the name for the D&D group when we did Strahd. Like our group was Dice Cream Sandwich. But then when it came to like posting about it, I was the person in the group that like did that regularly already. So, and I invited others to like contribute to it at times, and then nobody was like, yeah, I'll make stuff, and then nobody would. Or that at a certain point when it was starting to kind of gain traction, people wanted to like post stuff on it, but like it wasn't to the level that I thought it should be, and it might mess with the algorithm. So I was like, I'll take care of Instagram, but like if you want to post on the Facebook, like I can go for it because I'm not doing it as much. But then people wouldn't want to because the Instagram was doing well. So it was just one of those things that through just me posting a ton most of the time, like sometimes people in the group would post on it and that was fine. I was like, yeah, here's the logins. Like if you want to add to it, go for it. But people always said they wanted to do stuff and then just wouldn't. So I would be posting on it like 5 times a week. And then my face eventually was just on there a lot. So it was just people just called me that.
Yeah.
And then after the Strahd game ended, because we played that right up until the pandemic started, and last battle of Strahd was like us all on webcams. And then when that stream went away, I'd been making TikTok content for a while now, and again my face was just associated with that name, and then people just called me that. And then eventually that group just didn't like playing online. They were just like, this isn't for us, like we like the in-game experience better. And so that's when I started doing streams with other TikTok creators, because once the pandemic started and we're all locked in our houses, this is when like C's Tavern was starting to blow up and One Shot Questers was blowing up, and a lot of us who were making stuff, no one had really like connected us yet.
Yeah,
because TikTok was still such a brand new platform, and you were just seeing like creators who had never ever made any content in their entire life make 4 videos and then suddenly have like 8,000 followers. And they're like, holy, like, and me having at that point, having been experienced in the space for a long time and also being an actor, also know marketing, also know that these spaces can like influence people in weird ways and sometimes be a dark tiding for some people as well, and change their personalities because suddenly they're getting all this attention that they never had.
Yeah.
Felt a need to like try to connect us all. And like few of us were like talking to each other, but this is when I started what I think was like the first ever D&D TikTok Twitch streams, which we did a series of like 4 one-shots that led to like a big final fight, that are also on our YouTube channel. And it had like a bunch of creators on there, some that are still around and some that aren't. But it was the first time we're all like meeting with each other and playing with each other. And also that was the first time our Twitch numbers went bananas, because the first time we did this, we started like promoting it and everyone's making content about it. And like that first one shot had like 200 live viewers or 300 live viewers at the time. So we're like, oh, people want to watch us play together because they keep watching us individually. And then at that same time, other D&D TikTok streams started happening, like the Welcome In and a few other staples. And it just like you just started to see this thing grow and grow and grow. And then the Dice Cream identity kind of just became solely with me. And Jody Rose, who has been my sort of producing partner with the channel ever since we started, who was my first DM. So Jordy, who I think you met at Gen Con. He ran Strahd. He's also our tech guy in the chair for all of our streams. He does all the tech side, helps with the overlays, all the complications that come with streaming. When we do live events, he'll help me write the adventures we do, and take some of the burden off that way. And yeah, so it was just kind of after that, things just kind of snowballed from there. I started my first long-term campaign called Beyond the Realms that you can still watch online. That started in the pandemic, and then that led into us getting our first Gen Con performance, where we took that streaming group and we're on the main stage at Gen Con that had 10 people in the audience because it was the pandemic Gen Con. Still can say that. And online it had like 300 live people watching it. So it was just like a crazy moment. And that's when we did like 3 performances that year with like Quincy and a bunch of other creators, Kadiosaurus and One Shot Questers and a ton more. And yeah, things have just been kind of going forward ever since.
So I think this is a good time to talk about action, which is what we're doing and what we want to be doing. What are you working on now? What's the big project that is keeping Dice Cream Sandwich occupied?
The big project? Well, it's always a bunch of small, medium things all lumped together that make giant things. Like doing content creation, trying to keep up with that. Weekly, daily is always, at times it's easy and at times it's a grind. You kind of go through waves where like the ideas just come and it's easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. And other days you're like, you feel like you've just been on a treadmill for literally a month straight and your brain needs to relax. Which like I kind of hit that a little bit recently, where I kind of ease off the gas pedal of making stuff just to like recover and spend time with like family and friends. But we got the newest actual play that's been going on for a while now, our War of the Realms campaign. That's kind of like a sequel to Beyond the Realms, and started making my own little homebrewed continent with that.
Where can
and
people watch that?
Awesome.
Is that just on YouTube, or you stream that on Twitch as well?
We stream it on Twitch every Sunday at noon. It's kind of like our Sunday brunch show where you can kind of get up and have your coffee and put on your PJs and hang out with us in the chat. It's also on our YouTube channel for VODs and things like that. Also on Twitch VOD. And then it has Tank Tolman, Valiant Fox, Mossy Socks, Chelsea Bites, and Anastasia Rowland. And we had Miss Gina Darling guest star on it as a guest character, which was awesome. And we have other guest characters in mind coming up soon. And then sponsorships and live events. So like this year specifically, I was the first time I took Dice Cream full time. Up until this point, I'd been doing Dice Cream kind of part-time, but it's like a full-time job. And also having like a full-time job with a company doing content creation for TTRPG. Like last year, it was working with Quest Keep Studios for a full year. Before that, I was working with a hospitality management company that had like 20 restaurants under its belt. So I was making content for them and their socials while doing D&D stuff on the other side. But this year, things had just gone to a point where I was like, I'm just going to try to spread my wings and go on my own and see if I can keep coasting. And it's been really good. Can't complain. It's just amazing when you put out that energy out there that it kind of comes back to you. And lucky and fortunate enough to have built the brand up to a point where it's, I guess, a recognizable figure in the community. And my passion for not only this community, but the various products that I find, and whether they're games or dice or supplements or whatever it is, people just have found us and have wanted to work with us, which has been amazing. And then there's live events. We've done San Diego Comic-Con 2 years in a row now. We've done Gen Con 4 years in a row now, performing on stage with other creators and promoting other supplements that way. So yeah, it's a pretty multifaceted machine at this point. And we have a couple partnership sponsors that are also been like long-term engagements. Like we've been working with Penguin Random House, supporting their D&D books. We were working with Dispel Dice for a while, doing multiple posts for them. And right now we got a great partnership with NTSD Gaming. It was a wonderful, delightful family. That's where this Mega Chonky comes from. Mom and pop shop that make great TTRPG accessories. So there's lots of moving parts and all that.
That's so fun. One of the things coming up that you're going to be a part of is Heroes Without Borders, which is sort of what this is promoting. We're doing a huge charity stream, 7 or 8 charity streams, from November 20th to December 13th. If you want to come see Dice Cream Sandwich, help us fight Vecna for charity, promoting Doctors Without Borders. We're going to be doing that very soon. I'm so excited. I'm so grateful that you said yes to being a part of it. The cast is crazy. Obviously, Tank, who you mentioned, is going to be part of it, and a bunch of people. It's crazy. It's getting real weird. We're going to be announcing. I don't know when this episode is going live, so I don't know if we've announced sponsors yet or not. So I can't say things, but people are involved. There's going to be giveaways. There's going to be stuff that you can win by donating. It's going to be very cool. And obviously, Dice Cream, you are going to be in it and killing Vecna.
I sure heck am. Very excited. Love that story. I'm going to be running that for my home game people pretty soon.
Oh, really?
That entire campaign. Yeah, it's a bit of an alteration from the book. I watched this YouTube channel that I'm forgetting the name right now, which sucks. But if you just go into YouTube and look up Vecna Eve of Ruin alternate, I think it's a DM creator who made up this like alternate way of running the campaign with like, because the book starts at level 10, but it changes the story so it starts off at level 3, and he added like 10 levels of content to it to drag it out and like altered a few story bits, but it's so cool. So I'm doing the kind of alternate Eve of Ruin for them.
Yeah, I've very much because the charity thing is based on Vecna Eve of Ruin. I have very much altered it because it's going to be
okay.
well, it just has to, because every week is going to be a different party doing a different part of the adventure. So all of the like secret thing is cut. I just don't have time to get into all of that. We're doing 7 fetch quests. Yeah. Everything just had to be simplified down to like what is the like most important bit from this realm, and then for these 4 people to experience. And then next week, a new 4 group of people from another realm are doing their part. And then some of the final fights, it's simplified down to, we're going to go fight Vecna. I just couldn't, in 8 sessions, do that entire book, right?
Yeah. It's a lot.
The one I still haven't figured out how to adapt into a one-shot is Avernus, because it's like this whole casino thing that I'm like, can't do all of it. We can't have a whole casino in one-shot. So it's going to be interesting. I'm so excited to have everyone be a part of it. I don't play a lot of digital D&D because everything we produce is in our basement that we've built to look like a studio. And so I think the fun thing for me is going to be trying to adapt kind of my style to digital stuff, which isn't something that I've actually never DM'd a digital game. I've only ever like played in a couple of one-shots on Twitch. So we're going to have some practice rounds to get ready.
Yeah, I like both for very different reasons. In game, D&D has a different vibe. It feels, obviously it's great when things are happening in real time. You get to see those reactions in person, and but I feel, and from my experience, my online games, they're also streamed too. So maybe this is a bit different for people that play online games that aren't streamed. I find when they're streamed and there's an audience, everyone is just laser focused. Everyone wants to contribute to telling a really good story. Everyone is trying to help things move along. There's not a lot of meandering or empty spaces. You know what I mean? Not a lot of side conversations that are going on, maybe in text and Discord. But I just find that the ability to be the conductor, sort of speak, a lot more fluid, and especially when I have access to like music and sound effects and cool things, you can really make it a lot more of an immersive experience. At least you can make it a very immersive experience with not as much trouble as it would be to make it super immersive in a live setting, because you'd have to have like so many tools and things set up to kind of execute that in the same way. Like when I'm doing the Eve of Ruin game, I really want to buy into all of the cool tools that I've been given over the last few years, use them finally. So I want to do all the cool 3D maps. I want to use all of the fun trinkets and little items and smoke machines and stuff. But online games, you can still achieve all that, which is going boop, boop, boop. And I find I have a lot more control of the immersion of a game online than I would at home.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like for me, the one thing I'm going to need to get used to is just that sort of like disconnect that the microsecond between zooms kind of creates. There's always that moment of, the thing I love about a home game is that you can talk over each other, and on Zoom you just can't. And so it changes the cadence with which you are able to kind of talk with someone else, because there isn't sort of that, you have to halt so that they can talk. Otherwise, the digital disconnect kind of happens, and it's something that I think we're all getting very used to. I was talking in the, I can't remember which episode who I was talking with, but I was talking about they keep selling Sigil, the new D&D app.
The VTT,
thing.
yeah.
They keep selling it with people at a table. And I'm an adamant like this. I never like stop putting ads where people are sitting at a table not paying attention with one another. That's not D&D. Sigil's going to be great for digital D&D. You know what I mean? It's going to be really awesome for what I think the majority of the audience plays now, which is people who are separated and playing digitally. But every time they make an ad for it, they're making it like, oh, you're going to go to someone else's house with your laptop and look at your laptop while you're at a table with people. And I just don't think that's how people are going to use it. Like, really. I think... Because again, it's like the immersion thing, and I think it's gonna be. I'm excited to get my hands on it and get to know better like how it works and see for myself. But I want them to put out an ad about people loving it digitally, where so many people play D&D now, right? Like even people who are professional D&D people still get together online to do it because it's so much easier, and there's tools that like allow you, like you say, to be more immersive and create like a experience that you have more control over in that environment.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think that's the goal for them, is that people use it that way. I mean, I think it also depends on, every table is different with their accessibility for things.
Mm-hmm.
Some people love the textile nature of a mini and a map, but not a lot of people have the money to buy those things.
Yeah.
But everyone, for the most part, has a phone, a tablet, a laptop to use. So there is a bit of immersion lost with that, a bit. But if you are somebody who doesn't have a lot of accessibility to those kind of products, that is an easier way to get that across. But I know people also that just like find a grid paper and just have like things cut out, like little pieces from cardboard or paper, and like that's also good enough. So I think every table is different in how they want to use what they want to use. I certainly haven't seen a lot of tables with like everyone's doing maps on their laptop and computer situation.
Well, and I think
because it just feels like if you're all there, why not? But
even playing Foundry, though, just the reality of virtual tabletops is they are processor-heavy programs. And the idea that you're going to sit down with 5 people who all have a laptop that can actually run this program in front of them is an inaccessibility as well, right? Like accessibility tools go towards financial accessibility, in my opinion, as well. And I think that unless it can run on a MacBook Air, I don't know how many people are going to all have... I have a big chunky gaming laptop because I need to record stuff on the road and I need all the fucking inputs, you know? But so I have one laptop in my house that could run that. But if my wife and I wanted to play side by side and we were both using Foundry, one of us would have Foundry and the other would have a MacBook that's really trying. Like really, really trying.
Yeah. And also the price point is high too. Like it's not going to be a free tool. Like it's going to be parts of it are free, but like super basic. And if there's like, I don't know, if you're trying to play a Spelljammer campaign, there's a Spelljammer package. Like does one person buy that? and then it can be shared with everybody, or does everybody have to buy into it to use those assets? But even just that is like, that's too hard. Just we'll draw grid paper and do little cardboard tokens and good to go.
I don't want to be cynical about it, but I could absolutely see them being like, you can all like see the base token on your version, but only the people who paid for the Spelljammer campaign get to see the like animatics and like the movement of it. And like you can like on the base version, when you're like connected to your friend's account, it'll say that a fireball happened. But if you pay $2.99, you'll get to see that fireball go off. And
yeah, it is interesting how different companies put up D&D products, because there is a market for people to buy expensive shiny things in every nerd aspect.
You have a 12-pound D20 in front of you.
Yes, but this was also free. You know,
but people like, will buy that. Like it is a community where
I
people
would buy
will
it too.
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I would buy it as well. But because it's a great product. But for me, if I'm thinking about the majority of people who play this game who don't have a lot of money. Most people in this community don't have the money to buy a lot of these expensive tools. Like even if I were like trying to start this hobby and I wanted to do a campaign and I was flat broke, I would literally find grid paper, have cardboard, my players' tokens are circle, the lower CR guys are diamonds, and the higher CR guys are squares or stars or whatever. And that's how I would do it, because like, why not? And then eventually you get into getting the more like nicer stuff. But like, this game is based on imagination first and foremost.
Yeah.
I love having all of the minis that I have. I love using them. They're fantastic. They're super cool to use. But again, if I wasn't a content creator, would I spend this much on minis all the time? I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably, maybe, because I'm that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But I also know that like that's not realistic for most people. Like I'd probably buy like the really big nice minis for like big boss fights, because that's just really cool to like have your players see that on a map. I'd probably buy that per campaign kind of thing. But when it comes to like VTTs and everything, they're great online tools. And we use Roll20 for a lot of our online games, and like I don't know where we'd be without them. Like it probably would be like a cool image on the screen and just doing theater of the mind.
Yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, that whole VTT thing is going to be really interesting when it comes out, because I've just felt there's an inherent accessibility factor that it's going to present it like it's a video game. But like, if you're like, this is Halo, you should buy it, and be like, all right, well, like, there's also Halo over here, and this is free.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna use the free Halo one instead of, you know, the really expensive. Like, it's nice, and I'm gonna give it a shot. I want to try it and use it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But I feel like it's gonna appeal to a certain kind of fan that has a certain amount of money in their bank account. And that's going to depend on like the D&D Beyond subscription. Like if it's going to be an extra cost, or if it goes into if you have a D&D Beyond, I think you're going to get some free stuff. But like, as we all know, it's like most of the free stuff that comes with these programs is like, you get generic forest and goblins and that's it. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, and like you can buy Baldur's Gate 3 characters. And it's like, okay, well, I don't actually need that, because I'm not... That was a video game that I played. My campaign is not Baldur's Gate 3. Like, I'm not playing...
I want to be Asterion! No, I want to be Asterion!
I think everyone wants to fuck Asterion. I think that's actually the more...
That's true. I mean, I have always liked the idea of introducing notable personalities in games. Like, even with the new campaign, I have ideas of, like, bringing on really recognizable characters. Like Drizzt, for example, or something of that nature. Because, like, yeah, it would be a really cool thing to set up, like, oh, you have to talk to... We have a contact to get into this place, and only he knows secret entrance. Like, go to this tavern late at night, and you'll see him. He's wearing, like, this cloak. And you go there, and you're like, hello, darlings! And you put Asterion there. You're like, whoa! Like, people would love that. Like, it is fun. But, I don't know. the idea of like playing Baldur's Gate 3 characters in a made up campaign, or even Critical Role characters in a made up campaign, I feel like the idea sounds fun,
Mm-hmm.
but how many people are actually doing that, like executing on that?
Well, and I think for us also, there's that added element of, as content creators, there's an ownership issue with that kind of thing for like a monetized game, right? Like, I'm not going to put Astarion in my my streamed campaign that's like my company's product, because I don't own that character. You know what I mean? It gets into that weird kind of gray area, I think, when you're a company making, because that's what we do. We're making a product to be consumed, and we're making money off of it, right? I'm not, but my players are. I'm losing money right now, but eventually it'll be great one day. But like, in that game, there is a weird, D&D has a really interesting and weird copyright issue to me, where I think that people think that because D&D like WotC things are in the OGL, that like anything that happens in D&D is also in the OGL, and that's not like legally how it works. So I do think, like, if you're like, oh, I'm just gonna like make a stream game and use Exandria characters from Critical Role, there is a point where it's like, oh, you can't actually like make money on that though, because those aren't public property. Like, those are owned character. That's like IP that's owned. It's just it's an interesting space where I don't feel like anyone's made a stink about it yet. But I think because it's getting bigger and because it's getting more out there, there's gonna be a point where somebody's gonna cross that line, I think. And I'm curious to see how it happens.
But I think just also the majority of people who enjoy this hobby are not streamers. They don't.
No.
Make
This is
money
an
from
us
that.
thing, not a general
Oh
population.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But like that's why they're being made though. They're not being made for us. They're being made for people to enjoy them in their home games. Like I
Yeah.
always thought, like, I don't know why. I don't know if this has any merit to it, but I always thought there was like money being left on the table for Critical Role or Dimension 20 to make a campaign book out of their most famous campaigns. Like if I wanted to run
Mm-hmm.
the Vox Machina campaign for friends who have never watched the show
Yeah.
and be like, here are the pre-generated characters for this story. Vex, Vax, Keyleth, who wants to be who? And maybe they don't have to be like their personalities necessarily. Like maybe they could, like it says like what their personality type is, but they run them their own interpretation of that. But run them through like the Briarwood arc, the Karma Conclave arc, the
Mm-hmm.
Vecna arc. I think that would be super fun to do.
Yeah.
Or like one of the Dimension 20 campaigns and be like, you can run, the junior high school campaign, or on the Sleeping New York campaign,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, and like, here are the pre-generated characters, run through that. I always thought that would be a lot of fun to like do. So in that way, having like the minis of the Vox Machina crew be like, you get to be them, you get to play that story.
Yeah, it's interesting. Critical Role went the other, or it kind of went down that route, but instead of doing like the Vox Machina campaign, it was like, here's the world, go play in it, right? Like
Yeah.
they've, because they did the Wildmount campaign setting, and then there's the 2 Tal'Dorei books.
It's the
And
same book, one's just like updated.
yeah. But they have so you can, like, the character sheets for those characters are in those books.
Yeah.
Although I think they're at max level, so you'd have to like do some reverse math to like get them down to the starting levels. Yeah, that's interesting. I know like Adventure Zone has put out some stuff. I actually don't know if Dimension 20's ever put out any modules or anything like that.
No,
Yeah.
no, they're just purely about the content. But I always thought it'd be fun too to like, I don't know. I just always think about weird products or things that might be fun to like put out in the world. But like I find, just bringing it back to like D&D, TTRPG, like campaign skeletons,
Mm-hmm.
I feel are like an idea that's not widely talked about as much as it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Like the blueprint for a story beginning to end, rather than having, when people ask me about like like would I make a homebrewed campaign, or like I've always wanted to try, where do you start? like for War of the Realms, the skeleton for that campaign is Shattered Obelisk. I love that story. So like that's the base. It hits some of those beats, but we're on a homebrewed continent with its own structure and political system and everything, and it kind of follows the line. And sometimes it veers off where it veers off, but it's still following that beginning, middle, and end structure of it. And I always thought like the Vox Machina skeleton of that campaign is such a great like beginning, middle, and end of a story that if you wrote that skeleton out and people can just drag and drop content for what those NPCs are, what those lands are, I think that'd be super value. If you're like, all right, this is the Vox Machina skeleton. The first arc will be this. It will involve this kind of conflict that starts here, goes here, ends here, which bleeds into the main middle conflict with a very huge villain that are trying to take over the land. Here are the beats of that arc, but drag and drop, put in what you want. That leads into this ancient god villain.
Yeah.
Drag and drop, put in what you want.
And then Joe Manganiello shows up at your table and...
Exactly. Go find Bodybuilder, who's into Dragonborn, put him in there. I just think that kind of guidance is super valuable, that like it's not a product that I see ever really focused on or talked about as much.
Yeah, and the modules, I feel like the WotC modules are really oddly structured to me, like consistently weird. They always seem to have the same issues, which is like the villains always just kind of show up in our fights, but they're not sort of laced through. I feel like, you know, because I watch a lot of people review new modules when they come out, and there's a few channels that I really love, and it really is interesting that a lot of them have the same critique every time WotC drops a module of like they've done their style again. I would actually love to see more people, and I think that people are putting them out. It's just hard to find. It's harder to find them because they're not published by WotC, right? But there are people who are putting out great modules that do kind of do the skeleton thing. And I think that if I was giving advice to a DM who wasn't maybe comfortable coming up with story structure themselves, I would recommend kind of going away. I know that obviously right now I'm running Shadow of the Dragon Queen from the Dragonlance book, kind of. I took the beginning of it and then threw away everything else. And then we're doing Eve of Ruin. And so I'm kind of running WotC modules this year. But I think that like outside of the WotC model, there's a lot of companies making really great. I know Sync just came out, which is like a pirate themed sort of module that people are really loving. And I just think there's a lot of really great work being done outside of sort of the big companies, where if you can find the people putting out, Hit Point Press puts out great stuff. I love everything they've done with like Humblewood. And I do like what you're saying there, though, of like, take the module and take the skeleton, but leave like all the minutia stuff, leave that to your characters, leave that to what your players come up with and how they fit into the story. But like, just take those like the overarching points and kind of like try and get your characters to pay enough attention to go towards them.
Yeah, because I find a lot of new DMs, and I get asked about it a lot, about how to like, you know, players meandering, or like a lot of new DMs have great ideas for NPCs, you know, locations, or, oh, I have this idea for a great wizard battle in a tower. But I feel a lot of, you know, newer DMs tend to have an issue with pacing, or like letting a string go way too far off and then they have to spend forever to reel it back in.
Yeah.
Or like one of the greatest sort of behind the screen DM magic tricks is the invisible railroad, or like you need to get your party to go from A to B, but you don't want it to feel like they don't have a way to alter it or to advance it or to change it in some way. But, you know, instead of going left, they go right, but like right had this guy they had to ask this question to. Okay, well now he's going to be left instead of right, because we need to get information across. When a lot of DMs are like, no, that guy's right. We're going to go left. You can't. Why? Because there's a wall there, and you keep hitting into it. So right, please. I feel that
my favorite way to deal with that is come up with the tavern and come up with the piece of information they're getting from the tavern. And then whoever the person they want to talk to is the person who has that information. Like, know what you need them to know, and know that someone in the tavern knows it. And whoever it is they decide to start talking to and get really invested in, that person has the bit of information that you need them to know. Because then it feels like they made a choice, but you're like, this is the thing that we cannot move forward if this information isn't imparted. And so it doesn't matter who they care about. The person they care about has the bit of information for them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I feel that structure and pacing in long-term storytelling is very important.
Mm-hmm.
It's the reason why people drop out of campaigns a lot, is because it's like start and go, or it feels like a side quest is like just been dragging on forever, and it's not, the plot isn't advancing, and we're just going around in circles, and that's when people get disinterested and they drop out. It hasn't happened to me too often, but I just know for a lot of people that is a common issue. And I think having like a book of story structure, like a book that's literally only about story structure and campaign skeletons, where it's like, here's a coloring book, fill in the blanks, draw inside the line, color inside the lines kind of thing, where like everyone's great ideas are like, oh, so this first arc is, you know, let's just use Briarwood as example. Like, okay, there's going to be a first arc baddie that will be intrinsically tied to one of your players' backstories in a dark way. They killed their family, they murdered their sister, they took over the family business and ran it into the ground. And you visit this kingdom and they come visit and then they leave and then you go fight them on their turf. Like that could be just a few lines. And then you like, okay, well, who's my baddie? Oh, I've had this idea about this baddie. Oh, this player said their backstory, someone killed their family. They don't know who it is. It'll be these people. Okay. And then you just start to connect the dots essentially. And you've got a really solid first arc with motivations, with character integration, and your own ideas get implemented in a really straightforward way. Maybe I'll just make that product.
I feel like you could just write this book.
Yeah.
I would hand people a copy of Story by Robert McKee and just say, read this. It is the best story book ever written about writing stories. And then go read Ice Cream Sandwich's novel.
Yeah, because I just think that you can have the greatest ideas of the livelong day and have these ideas for massive payoff, or like, ooh, I'll do this one clue at the beginning of the campaign and 40 sessions in, they'll be like, wow, that all came together. But it never winds up going the way you think. And I think just having something that can keep the compass keep pointing north consistently to like help the checks and balances of a campaign, I think would be really valuable.
The last section of our podcast is the lawsuit. And I feel like you brought up some like lightly hot topics throughout this. But I want to know what your your hot take, not hot topic. Hot topic is a store I love dearly. It's where I get all my belly button piercings. Kevin, what formal lawsuit would you like to file with whatever the state of British Columbia, which is a province, but most of my audience is American. What is your hottest take within the TTRPG industry?
I don't know. I'm not the most controversial guy.
You're allowed to say something you don't believe just to get like TikTok content out of this. You know what I mean? Like you can just make stuff up.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not the biggest rage bait guy. Like I know maybe my hot take is that I don't have a lot of hot takes.
Someone will be upset about you saying that.
Probably. Everyone's upset about something these days. But I don't know. Even like obviously all the stuff that happened with WotC I don't agree with. And I think it was good that all of us were vocal about all that stuff. And I think there are a lot of issues that should be discussed and talked about and defended. And when things come up that feel weird or not right, like we all should say something for sure. But as far as like, that's just industry stuff. But we're talking about D&D hot takes, just the game itself. I think some of the issues that I've seen come more with like, and maybe it's just because I DM a lot, it's harder for me to get involved in games as a player sometimes if the DMing isn't at a certain quality. And I just think that, and maybe this is a hot take, I don't know, but I feel that D&D primarily for me is a player first game.
Mm-hmm.
If your game is not focused and centered around the players having the best experience possible,
Mm-hmm.
taking yourself out of the equation, taking your ego out of the equation, if every decision you make isn't what's going to be the best possible experience for this particular group of players, I think you're doing the game a bit of a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
If you had an amazing NPC or an amazing plot that isn't clearly vibing and you are just forcing it in there because you think it's great and you want this NPC or story beat to be expressed, who cares if the players don't like it very much?
Yeah.
I think it's super cool. That sucks. And giving your players those awesome moments, those NPCs, if they like mention a few beats into the campaign, they're like, oh man, yeah, I just envision this moment where I have like angel's wings and a massive sword, and I'm like, the sun's gleaming on me, and I'm gonna kill a dragon. I will remember that for later, and give them that moment. Don't just well, that's not happening in this campaign because we're in the Underdark and there ain't no dragons here. Anyway, or like,
I agree with what you're saying. I think that the Mr. Shikadance was on a couple weeks ago, and we were chatting, and his was that he doesn't like the DM is a player 2 thing. And because it's a sentiment that's going around, and I understand the idea behind it being that like the DM is there to like you should be kind of helping your DM have fun too. Like the DM is a person who should be your friend, and you should like consider them. But I do think the danger of that sentiment a little bit is that it runs antithetical to the way in which the game positions the DM as sort of behind a screen, right? And whether you use a screen or not is sort of irrelevant, but there's an information imbalance. And if the person with all the information is also taking away from the players' fun, like you're saying, or not delivering information that could be fun for the players, and is just sort of like hoarding the knowledge and therefore hoarding the fun for themselves, you run into that, I think what you're kind of getting at here, which is that difficult thing where the players around the table are just sitting there being like, why are we here? Like if the DM's sort of playing for themselves, why are there other people at the table? And like so many people say, write a book. You know what I mean? Like just go write a book. There's so many great ways you can make money writing books. It's really hard to make money playing D&D. And yeah, I agree with you completely. I think that like my favorite point in the process of a new campaign is when I get character backstories, because that's where the campaign becomes real to me, because I can actually like take the like broad idea that I've come up with and been like, okay, this is how these characters fit into it. But until I have a character backstories, I don't have a campaign because I don't really have much of anything. I just have a bad guy that I think will be interesting for other people to fight. And so I agree completely.
I also think that every DM needs to be a player at least 3 times, not just once.
Yeah.
You need to experience just like any good filmmaker will watch lots of different content and get inspired by it and take it in and let it influence their art. And it depends how serious you want to take this, man. Like, honestly, like I'm obviously speaking from a place of privilege a little bit in how much time and effort I put into my storytelling. And there are games where DMs are just like, yeah, so you go over here and you knock that door down and you hit him with a sword. Sweet. What do I do? 20 damage. Sick. And that's, for that DM and that experience, it's awesome. But I don't know. I just think that if you're privileged enough to have a group of people come over for 4 hours out of their day to be a part of the story and to join you in experiencing this kind of social activity, feel like you owe it to them to make them feel like they're contributing or a part of something and feel like heroes or feel like they're advancing the plot in some way. Like, yeah, if you're in a city and you're like, yeah, in my brain, the only guy who has this information is way the hef over here. The one player is like, okay, I'm gonna ask around. Does this person know this? No. Does this person know this? No. Yeah. Does this person know this? No. Does this person know this? No. Okay. Well, I'm done. Like, it just, the first no, maybe 2, but like, who cares? Like, let that person have their moment. In a recent session of War of the Realms, Anna, our player, is really intrigued in learning a character from their backstory, what they've been doing in the Feywild all this time. Her backstory was they were in the Feywild. This person who's like their best friend, their buddy, suddenly kicked them out of the Feywild and said, "You got to leave," and like shunted them through a portal and just like didn't let them come back.
Jeez.
And she's like been trying to figure out like where he is, what's going on, why did this happen? And we're in a homebrewed sort of magic city, and the first thing she does, she saw someone playing a violin as a busker, and she's like, "Oh, Cordy is a fairy who plays a violin. I'm gonna ask that busker if maybe he knows them." What are the chances that they know each other? I don't know, but buskers are a community. He's a fairly well-known person as a musician. People could talk, people could know each other. So the minute she goes and asks that guy, and like I know it's something that she wants and something that she wants to like just feel like she's advancing a little bit. Like, do you know Cordy? Oh, that violin guy? Yeah, I think I've heard of him. He plays like that kind of music, right? Like, yeah, I've heard of him. Do you know where he is? I don't know. I've not really heard much about him in a while. I think last time I heard him, he was still in the Feywild, maybe. Took nothing to give that person that information. I could have easily been like, that busker wouldn't know that character. They're not in the Feywild. But like, what does that do to their enjoyment of the story? Like, no, I said no, so that's what it is. And I just feel that mentality really can send players to be disinterested after a while. Because again, it just feels like, what are we doing here? Why do we come to a table for 4 hours to not do things? Yeah. And of course, there's limits. I can already hear people going, "But Dice Cream, my players want to build a cannon out of a dragon's butt and have fire breath come out of it. Should I let them do that?" Well, fucking no. Like,
or yes.
If it doesn't,
how much damage can a cannon really do? Like, does it? You know, if they want to use the rectum as the skin around the cannon, it's probably fireproof, but it's still going to do cannon damage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I say that scenario like level 1, they want to be able to just do this.
Yeah,
instantly, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like,
well, but
they just want to have it, and that's it.
I like what you said earlier, though, where you said, like, my character wants to do this. And it doesn't even need to be in the moment, but you write down, like, in Astral Dusk, our, like, Saturday game, Bannon, the paladin in our group, really wants full plate armor. And I'm making it really hard for him to get it because he already has an AC of 20, and they're only level, like, they just turned to level 7, right? And so I'm like, your AC is so much higher than the rest of your party, it's sort of skewing things. I know you want it, so you're like, there's a path to get it, but I'm also going to kind of make you work towards that while you guys level up a little bit, so that when you get to a level where everyone is sort of at the same combat level, you're getting this upgrade that you've worked for. And it's going to mean something in the future because your character has been taking part in these steps to get access to a suit of armor built for a Kender, which is very weird in this world. And it's not always about like immediate gratification, but it's about, as a DM, taking the care to listen to your players, I think, and kind of think of like, how can I take what they want and give it to them in a way that's going to also be exciting because of the manner in which they got it.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what I'm getting at is like, they want to do crazy stuff really early level. Should I just hand that to them? It's like, well, no, but take that in, make a note of that, and make it be like a goal that happens over time or they work towards so that everyone's winning. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's a great place for us to end on, is the optimism of GMs. You need to work harder, not smarter. No, I'm so kidding. Thank you so much for this conversation. It's been great. I'm a huge fan of your content. I think you make great stuff. I cannot wait to see what you continue to do. If you're ever at a con where Dice Cream is doing a live show, you got to go. It is a rockin' good time. Where can people find your stuff around the internet, and what should they be looking out for?
It's just Dice Cream Sandwich on all platforms. We have our campaign live Sundays at 12 p.m. PST on our Twitch. You can check us out there. Always posting content on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, also on Threads and Twitter. The next couple of events are going to be D3 at Sea, which is a D&D cruise in November for a week. So that's going to be awesome. And then we're going to be at PAX U in December. which is going to be an awesome time. We don't have any events going on this year. It's my first time going. So just going to be there to kind of hang out and take it all in and enjoy it, watch some Critical Role live, and just have a blast.
To their show.
I want to. I haven't bought tickets yet, but I'm pretty much going to. I don't think it's sold out. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. Oh yeah, I've seen it a couple times.
We got to go to the Candela show they did in over the summer, and it was just fantastic.
I went to the Critical Role live show in LA in the bowl, which was super dope.
At the Greek.
That's it.
Yeah. I was like, they played the Hollywood Bowl? That would be crazy. Honestly,
that would be crazy.
That would be pretty incredible. I got to see John Williams there last year, and it was like the best night of my life.
Sick.
Thank you so much. I am Nerdy Nightly. You can find me everywhere at that. The most important thing, though, is follow the Roleplay Relay everywhere so you don't miss any announcements about Heroes Without Borders. We are committed to raising money for charity all this year. Right before the holidays, it's going to be a great time for you to do some good for Doctors Without Borders. There's a lot of things going on in the world. There's a lot of people who need help. And so we're going to bring together all your favorite TTRPG content creators to try and do that good later this year. So follow that, like the channel, do all those things. Leave me in comments down below. You know I love those. Give the podcast 5 stars on Apple, Spotify, all the places. And as always, do something nerdy tonight. Bye.